Thank you so much, Anne. It is so great to see a lot of familiar faces and names and meet some of you. So I am Heather Finden. I'm a program manager here with the City of Phoenix. I have been employed here for, I'll just say, over 20 years. So my background is in environmental and natural resources, and I have been lucky enough to have worked with the Parks and Recreation Department as a natural resource manager, the Water Services Department as a environmental quality specialist and compliance manager. And I am recently placed in the Planning and Development Department where I am the Stormwater Post-Construction Program Manager. So wear a lot of different hats, which is fun. And I was kind of brought into the fold. I do need to give a shout out to Trisha Balliff and a name you probably a lot of you recognize for bringing me into this green stormwater infrastructure world. So with that being said, it is something that I am very passionate about as well and have really enjoyed working on for the last 18 months. I'm going to set my own timer here so that I don't talk forever because I can. Um, but again, I just really appreciate the opportunity to speak to you all today, and I look forward to your questions. So just a really brief overview on what we're going to be talking about today. I can certainly talk about each of these things for the entire period, but just want to go over a little bit of history with GSI and the City of Phoenix, how we did work with the Bloomberg Associates to figure out what our goals and objectives were and the priorities and how we could implement them. And then also what we see as the future of GSI in Phoenix and what we're also doing um, as part of this journey. So a little bit of a spoiler alert, we are still on our journey. So we are going to be continuing to join these meetings and to learn from all of you, the experts in the field as well. I thought this slide was pretty profound. I actually found this when I was looking through our archives from a 2014 presentation that was given by staff in the Office of Environmental Programs to talk about some of the barriers to implementing GSI in the City of Phoenix. And as you can see, there's a lot of challenges and opportunities that face a city of our size, with over 14,000 employees covering 519 plus square miles, depending on the day. It's truly a sizable effort to operate and manage a city of this magnitude. And as you can see in the orange, there are at least, and many more, 5 major entities that have significant roles in the functions related to the design, the construction, the permitting, and the installation of projects, including GSI, not only in the public sector, but the private sector as well. So as we are organized, we certainly have our individual roles and responsibilities, but there is so much overlap, and there is a lot of opportunity for missing pieces and parts and disconnect and silos and all of those things. So I just thought that this was a pretty interesting representation of our city in and of itself. So we can look back and really go about 10 years in the not too distant past, around 2013, when we were really looking at our policies, our procedures, and our codes within the city of Phoenix. We were really promoting the use of green infrastructure, trying to build the support, and it was really centered a lot on the Office of Environmental Programs and kind of that, well, what can we say, that green initiative, if you will, that kind of fuzzy, warm feeling that we all have for the trees. But as time went on, it was looked at in a more pragmatic approach. We did work with some agencies on this call here and some entities to do a triple bottom line cost benefit analysis of our infrastructure, look at some case studies in and around our area, and really providing a lot of this information to the private developers who might want to implement these types of features in their projects and around the valley. And during this time, we really did see a lot of private entities. We did some pilot projects, and then we also did some partnerships. We also did a study. We commissioned a study done by Cohen Van Loo consultants in the end of 2018. So we could look at a handful of our city projects as well to see how effective they were. So now we're really getting into, the engineering, the numbers, the cost, the value, the added value, the physical value for maintenance and things of that nature. Now, it wasn't until 2020, I know that's put out in 2019, but it wasn't until 2020 that the handbook, as we love to call it, the Greater Phoenix Metro Area Handbook, was adopted by our Planning and Development Department. So all of those standards are adopted, and we do have those available on our website and do promote those for use within the city of Phoenix. Then took it a step further, and our street transportation department actually adopted 8 of those state MAG standards. So all of those are listed there as well. And then what we came here to talk about. In 2022, we were presented with an enormous opportunity. As a city of Phoenix, we did submit, and I'll go into just a teeny bit of this as to how it came to be in working with Bloomberg Associates. But this is where we really were able to harness the power and the benefit of having a third party come in and take a look at our process. So again, we're kind of moving down that road. We're making steady progress. We're putting some really key elements into place, but now's the time where they really all come together. So what do we have to show for the last 10 years? We have some fantastic projects that were installed by our private development community. We do have some retrofits and some new elements within our is this is really done by people who want to do it. They're actively incorporating it into the design. They're having a green LEED certification building or campus. They're really actively wanting to do this. Or it's solving a problem. There's a lot of localized flooding. We have a lot of low-lying areas, and so it was meant to be an alternative to putting in some additional stormwater infrastructure. So that's kind of what we're seeing. And we have a healthy little portfolio of some great projects in and around the city. Okay, this is my take on seeing the forest for the trees. It's time to really take a step back and get that look at what we're doing. So what is Bloomberg and Associates? So as it may be familiar at Bloomberg in 2014, and they are basically, and they're not basically, they are offering completely free services to municipalities to work with them and to mentor them and to help deliver some very actionable goals. And so we went through a pretty extensive application process in February of 2022. We did have to do a series of interviews. Our city manager's office, our mayor was involved, and then we were selected as a city to move forward with Bloomberg and Associates to achieve a bunch of our goals. So on average, they provide about 4,500 hours of consulting time to the cities that they serve, and that can equate to about $3 million annually. So it's a pretty extensive and large commitment that they're able to provide to us in the city of Phoenix. We were provided with a principal, a project manager, and several team members to help with our goal, or our initiative, if you will, which was we want more GSI in the city of Phoenix. That's a pretty big ask, and it's pretty generic, and it's pretty ambiguous. So they were the ones who really came in and sat down with us initially to help us figure out, what do we truly want? Okay, we want more, but what does that look like? How are we going to get there? What are the things that are important to us as a city? And how are we actually going to be able to get this done? So this is what we were able to do in the very first part of our contract term, which started in June of 2022. And I'll go into some of these in a little bit more detail. And I'm not overestimating this. This probably the anywhere from like 2 to 3 years if we were to do it as a city. And so those municipalities out there can probably shake your head and say, yeah, that sounds about right. So here's our vision statement. We're so excited to have this. And it was really great in setting the stage for our city departments to say, you know what, this is important to us. We stand behind it, and we are going to make this our mission. One of the key items that, again, would have taken us an extraordinary long amount of time was putting together this prioritization tool. So we provided them with 55 data sets that were important to us within the city related to flooding, heat, equity, mobility, and growth of the city of Phoenix. And depending on which of these layers we turned on and off, they were either the different indexes here that are in orange would prioritize that type of data. So we could look at a specific index as a priority, or we could turn the individual layers on and off and combine them. And this was a really great, unfortunately, it's internal, but it's a really great tool to help us prioritize and focus on areas of the city that could really benefit for this type of application. It would also help us in justifying grant opportunities and to secure funding as well to meet specific goals. And it just takes out a lot of the subjectivity and saying, wow, we have a giant city. Where do we start? So this is just a little example on establishing the high and the low priority areas for those GSI installations. Again, it's amazing that they put this together in a matter of months. We also came to realize that there's a lot of stuff we're already doing, and we just aren't either taking credit for it, or again, because of the city of our size, that we are really doing a lot towards this effort. It just needs to be focused, and we need to be doing it together. So for the next 5 months, we worked a lot with our interdepartmental working groups. We had representatives from each of the main departments throughout the city, looking at, what are our needs? What is the city process? What are our challenges? What are the quirks? Basically conducting like a whole SWOT analysis of the city and looking at ways to utilize what we have in place to help us realize some benefit and some movement. They did identify these buckets or these opportunities on places that we could focus, because it's not going to be implementing just one little thing. It's going to have to be a whole host of initiatives and projects and programs that are really going to start seeing us increase the amount of GSI that we have in the city. And a lot of these were then filled with actual initiatives. Now, these were identified and created by those champions from the different departments. So it's not them telling us what they think we should be doing. Rather, we are saying these are actionable things that we can accomplish within the city of Phoenix based within our structure and our organization. And then they also helped us rank these. And I know that this chart is a little hard to see, but we ranked all of those individual initiatives, have a description, have a champion for them based on the scale of the impact, the ease of implementation, and the cost to the city. And again, nothing is better than having a name assigned to one of those things so we can follow up with it. I'll touch briefly on this, but one of the things that kept coming up was the concern for those features within the right-of-way, how it can impact the life of the pavement, the road replacement schedule, the integrity of the road subgrade. So they actually, as part of this, also did a significant amount of research and literature review to put together a whole report for us so that, our administration and our staff and our engineers would feel comfortable moving forward with a lot of these applications. It doesn't look like much, but in phase 3, we still had a lot of work to do. And this is where we really needed to look at streamlining our process too. Were there things that were just so cumbersome and difficult to navigate that this would really and hinder the ability to put GSI into our projects? So we then looked at what are the other cities doing throughout the country? What are successes? What are things that they have in place? And so we did look a little bit outside of Arizona just because we are familiar with a lot of the things that are done here. And we're very engaged in the community. So they did a review of some of the things that other agencies do to accelerate the presence of GSI in the world. They are tried and true, and maybe we can take some of these and apply them. Now, this is where we really got into a sense of what this could look like in Phoenix. So Bloomberg did facilitate a developer roundtable with community stakeholders and city staff. We invited about a dozen individuals, and they'd be home builders, private developers, planners, community leaders. And we brought them into a room and basically gave them an overview of GSI. What is this? And asked them some open-ended questions. And we maintained a lot of silence and just wanted to hear from them. It was surprising and then not surprising at the same time. We were surprised that a lot of individuals were already using GSI and implementing it. They just weren't calling it GSI. They weren't familiar necessarily with the term green infrastructure. They were calling it other things, but they were using permeable pavers, bioswales, and things of that nature. So that was interesting. The individuals that we had actually attend were not familiar with the Greater Phoenix Metro Area Handbook. We provided all of them with a copy, and they were not necessarily familiar with the MAG standards. So that was a big eye-opening experience too. What do we need to do to educate our community? And then we asked them, what are incentives? What would make you want to if you don't already incorporate these things? And we heard requests such as, streamlining the permitting process, if we could get it fast tracked, or if we could have a swap with density and lot coverage and parking and height and maybe some of those zoning stipulations. So it was all taken into account, and it's important for us to, not necessarily negate or say no to a lot of these things, but just really understand what would be a benefit for our community moving forward. So at the end of the day, we did end our formal partnership with Bloomberg in December of 2022. We got a full report, and these are some of the key actions here, the recommendations from them to our city specifically on ways that we could encourage and really help grow GSI in the public and the private sector. At the end of the day, we still need to meet with the city manager's office and our administration to say what are those things that we can implement in the short term, and what are some of those things that really need to have a lot more care and might be a little bit more challenging to implement through zoning changes, fee increases, implementation of new fees, and things of that nature. So that is coming up very shortly, but I do want to leave with some positives and some things to look forward to. What are we doing now? What are we able to do? So we are continuing with our interdepartmental working group within the city, because we don't want all of that momentum to be lost. We really want to keep those different departments engaged and have those champions continue to move forward and make effort with those initiatives that they identified. Just because Bloomberg isn't here anymore, that doesn't mean that I don't have that spreadsheet and we're not helping them get these things put in place. So I am acting as the co-chair of this working group along with Brian Fellows in our street transportation department. So you are welcome to reach out to us with any questions. And we're going to continue to help support and guide those departments in achieving the goals. We've also implemented a very rudimentary inventory and dashboard that is internal at this time, but we really want to have it available for others to view so that they can see where these applications are within the city of Phoenix and help us add to this list because we only have a small inventory of projects right now, and we know that there are so many more out there. And you better believe every time I drive down the road, I'm looking for them and I'm going to add them to this list. Finally, we want to make it a lot easier for our residents and for our developers to design and construct and implement GSI within the city of Phoenix. We are getting ready to launch our brand new website that is going to be a one-stop shop for all the information you need for permitting, construction, and providing you with tools and resources instead of having information placed on different city department websites. We are in this process as well as working with a contractor to produce a City of Phoenix GSI handbook for residents. This will provide them with the information, incentive, and education materials needed to install GSI features on their property, but also if they want to install features within the property that they are responsible for maintaining, but it just happens to be within city right of way. We know that that offers its own set of challenges. We hope to have this completed in, let's say, summer of 2024, so that we are really working hard on getting this out. And if you know anything about the city, you know we love a good checklist. So we rely heavily on applications, checklists, guidance documents, all that great paperwork. And so we are putting together a implementation guideline for GSI specifically, again, to help you walk through that process so it's not such a big mystery when you are trying to put it in your private project. Thank you for going on this journey with me as we go over the last 10 years. We've taken quite a few detours on the way. We've gotten turned around, but I'm happy to say we are on the right track. And we finally have the tools, equipment, and the roadmap to complete the journey so that we do encourage and have more GSI within the city of Phoenix. So I thank you all again for your time, and I am happy to answer any questions that you have.